There's one topic that practically every personal finance YouTuber mentions exactly once. One sentence. Somewhere between stop buying Starbucks every morning and open a brokerage account. They say it. Oh, and by the way, keep 3 to 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund. Next slide. Everyone moves on. Nobody explains why. Nobody explains how this single decision changes your entire game. Nobody tells you the truth that an emergency fund is not some boring safety blanket for anxious people. It's a weapon, and today I'm going to show you the math that proves it. Let's start with how most people think about an emergency fund. They picture something like a savings account that just sits there, doesn't grow, slowly loses value to inflation. Money that's doing nothing. And that logic pushes people to either skip the emergency fund entirely, why park cash when you could invest it, or keep it as small as possible to maximize their investment contributions. This is a fundamental thinking error, and it costs people tens of thousands of dollars in missed opportunity. Not because they're not investing, but because of how they behave when the market turns against them. Here's what happens to a person without an emergency fund during a market downturn. March 2020. Markets dropped 35% in 34 days. The fastest crash in recorded history. What does the person without an emergency fund do when they suddenly lose their job, their car breaks down, or an unexpected medical bill shows up? They sell assets, at the bottom, at a loss. And then, when the market recovers, and it always recovers, they watch their former shares double in value, but those shares are no longer theirs. They got out at the worst possible moment because they had no choice. An emergency fund is not about protecting yourself from poverty. It's about protecting your ability to hold your position and buy when everyone else is selling. Now let's talk about the actual math. Take two investors, same starting conditions. Let's call them Ryan and Sarah. Both earn $10,000 a month, both spend $6,000, both invest $4,000 a month into an S&P 500 index fund. One difference, Sarah has a 6-month emergency fund, $36,000 in a separate high-yield savings account. Ryan doesn't. He deployed that money into the market right away because he didn't want to waste time. The first year, everything's fine. Ryan is actually slightly ahead because his $36,000 is also growing in the market. But then the downturn hits. The market drops 40%. At the same time, Ryan loses his job. Just a coincidence, but these coincidences happen precisely during economic crises because recessions are systemic. He spends 3 months looking for new work. 3 months he can't invest. Worse, he's forced to sell part of his portfolio at the lows just to cover rent, groceries, and his car payment. He liquidates $10,000 worth of shares. Shares he bought at an average of $100 apiece, he's now selling at $60. Sarah also loses her job during those 3 months, but she sells nothing. She lives off her emergency fund, and not just survives, she keeps her DCA, her dollar cost averaging, going even if at a reduced amount. Instead of $4,000 a month, she puts in $2,000 because the rest covers her living expenses. But she's buying at the bottom. She's buying shares at $60 that will be worth $120 a year later. 2 years after the crash, let's compare the portfolios. Ryan sold $10,000 worth of shares at the lows. But here's where it gets painful. Those shares doubled after the bottom. He doesn't just lose the 40% drawdown, he permanently locked in a loss by selling, and those shares are gone. The real cost to his portfolio isn't $10,000, it's closer to $20,000, because he sold at 60 what would have been worth 120. Add 3 months of zero new contributions. Add the psychological scar that makes him panic sell even faster next time. Sarah spent $18,000 from her emergency fund over those 3 months, but her portfolio is untouched. She kept buying at the lows. Her idle cash in that high-yield savings account turned out not to be dead capital. It was rocket fuel she fired at exactly the right moment, in the form of stability that let her hold and keep buying when it mattered most. The difference in their total portfolio value 10 years later, accounting for compound growth and reinvestment? Conservative estimates put it between $50,000 and $100,000 in Sarah's favor. And that's from just one crisis. But there's another effect almost nobody talks about, the psychological one. When you have an emergency fund, you invest differently, fundamentally differently. You don't check your portfolio 20 times a day. You don't panic at CNBC headlines. You don't sell just a little to reduce risk during a correction. Because you know, even if your portfolio drops 50% tomorrow, your basic survival doesn't depend on that money. That psychological independence lets you behave rationally when everyone around you is behaving emotionally. And on the market, rational behavior during a crisis is exactly where outsized returns come from. Every year, DALBAR publishes their QAIB report, Quantitative Analysis of Investor Behavior. And every year they show the same thing. The average investor earns dramatically lower returns than the index they're invested in. Why? Because they buy near the top when everyone's optimistic and sell near the bottom when everyone's panicking. An emergency fund is a structural defense against this behavior. It breaks the link between your financial survival and your investment decisions. Now, let's talk about how to actually build this right. So it works as an investment tool, not just dead weight. First, size. The classic advice of 3 to 6 months of expenses is a floor, not a ceiling. But I want you to reframe the question entirely. It's not, how many months of expenses? It's, what size buffer gives me the psychological freedom to buy aggressively when the next crash happens? For most people, that's 6 months. For anyone with variable income, freelancers, contractors, commission-based salespeople, business owners, that's 12 months. For those who want the option to make serious tactical purchases during a crash, think about a base emergency fund plus a separate opportunity reserve of 3 to 6 months on top. Second, where to keep it. Your emergency fund needs to be liquid and stable. This is not the place for risk, but stable doesn't mean zero yield. Right now in the US, there are high-yield savings accounts at banks like Marcus by Goldman Sachs, Ally, or Marcus paying 4 to 5% APY. There are also money market funds at Fidelity or Vanguard with similar rates. Treasury bills, specifically 3-month or 6-month T-bills, are another excellent option. Backed by the federal government, virtually zero risk, and currently yielding competitive rates. The rule is simple. Money must be accessible within 1 to 3 business days. That rules out stocks, crypto, and real estate. Not because they're bad, but because they're not liquid when you need them most. Third, mental separation. This is critical. The emergency fund must be in a separate account, ideally at a different institution than your checking account, with just enough friction that you won't be tempted to rate it for something that isn't a true emergency. Name the account, literally. Market Crash Fund. My Offensive Reserve? Fuel for the bottom. Psychology is involved in everything, and a label on an account is a small thing that actually works. Fourth, replenishment after use. If you tapped your emergency fund during a crisis, that's not a failure. That's exactly what it's there for. But once the situation stabilizes, your first financial priority is rebuilding it to its target level before you ramp up investments again. This is the discipline that keeps the weapon loaded. Let's now walk through the actual DCA math during a downturn. Imagine you have a portfolio of $100,000 and you invest $2,000 a month. The market drops 40%. Most people at this point either stop contributing or cut back because it feels terrifying. The person with an emergency fund does the opposite. Basic DCA with no change in strategy. $2,000 a month, regardless of what the market is doing. Already better than selling, but there's a more aggressive approach for those who have both an emergency fund and the conviction to use it. During a deep correction, let's say the market is down more than 30%, you can temporarily increase your monthly contribution by redirecting the portion of your emergency fund above your target baseline. If your target is $36,000 and you've saved up $50,000, that $14,000 in excess can be deployed tactically. If you're buying at a 40% drawdown and the market returns to its previous level, your return on those specific purchases is roughly 67%. If you're buying at a 50% drawdown, your return is 100%. This isn't market timing. This is just math. When prices are lower, the return per dollar invested is higher. The emergency fund is the structure that lets you act on that math without worrying about keeping the lights on. There's one more angle worth examining: the correlation between economic crises and personal financial disruptions. People tend to think of these as independent events. My portfolio might crash, or I might lose my job, but probably not both at once. But in reality, they're correlated. When markets fall, it usually means the broader economy has slowed down. And when the economy slows down, unemployment rises, bonuses get cut, sales drop for business owners, consulting contracts dry up. Exactly when your portfolio is in the red and you want to be buying more is also when your income is most at risk. Without an emergency fund at that moment, you're forced to choose between survival and investing. With one, that choice doesn't exist. Let's bring it all together. An emergency fund is not about fear. It's about freedom. Freedom not to sell under pressure. Freedom to buy at the best prices. Freedom not to check your brokerage account every 2 hours because your basic survival doesn't depend on it. The math is straightforward. One good cycle, one crisis where you bought instead of sold, can add more to your net worth than several years of ordinary dollar cost averaging. And the emergency fund is the only structure that reliably lets you behave correctly in that moment. Some people will say, but inflation is eroding my emergency fund. Yes, it is. But the value of your emergency fund isn't measured by its nominal yield. It's measured by how many dollars you didn't sell at the market bottom, how many shares you bought at the lows, and how much better you slept during the last crash. If your $36,000 emergency fund loses 5% to inflation annually, that's $1,800 a year. But if that fund once allowed you to hold your positions and buy more during a crash, the difference in your portfolio a decade later can be 10, 20, 50 times that $1,800. That's not a cost. That's the cheapest insurance policy with the highest potential payout you'll ever find. One more thing I want to address. A mistake I see constantly from high-income earners and people with sizable portfolios. They think, I have $1 million portfolio. Why do I need an emergency fund? I'll just sell a few shares if something comes up. This logic sounds reasonable but ignores one thing. You never know when something comes up. And if it comes up at the same time the market is down 40%, and we already know that correlation is real, then your liquid million suddenly becomes 600,000, and you're forced to sell exactly when you least want to. Portfolio size doesn't replace an emergency fund. It changes the dollar amount, but it doesn't eliminate the need. Here's the bottom line. If you've been thinking of your emergency fund as a boring obligation, cash sitting on the sidelines that your financial advisor told you to keep because it's what financial advisors say, now you know the truth. It's your tactical reserve. It's your psychological independence. It's the guarantee that in the moment of greatest opportunity, and a market crash is that moment, you'll have both the ability and the nerve to act. Most people in the market do the wrong thing at the wrong time because their financial survival is tied to the price of their shares. Yours doesn't have to be. Build the emergency fund, not 3 months, 6. Keep it separate in liquid instruments that still generate a reasonable yield, like a high-yield savings account or a money market fund. Look at it not as frozen money, but as a loaded weapon waiting for the right moment. And the next time markets crash, while everyone around you is panicking and selling, you'll be sitting there, calmly buying. That's the difference between an investor who got lucky and an investor who built a system where good outcomes are inevitable. If this video was helpful, hit like. Not because that's what people say at the end, but because the algorithm will show it to someone staring at a red portfolio right now, not knowing what to think. Maybe these numbers will help someone avoid a bad decision at a bad moment. See you in the next video.